So draw your swords and hold up the tables to shield yourselves. Then attack. If we manage to force him away from the door and the threshold, we can run outside and raise the alarm, and the people will come and put an end to this man and his shooting." He drew his double-edged sword and uttered a shrill, blood-chilling war shout and threw himself at Odysseus. But at the same instant Odysseus shot, and the arrow pierced his breast near the nipple and stuck in his liver. And the bronze sword dropped from his hand, and he doubled up and fell sprawling across a table, spilling the food in the two-handled cup, and he beat the ground with his forehead as he writhed in agony, and his 2 feet kicked out and rocked the chair, and a dark mist covered his eyes. Amphinomus was the next to attack Odysseus, running at him with his sword in order to drive him away from the door, but Telemachus was too quick. He threw his spear at his back, and the bronze point plunged in between his shoulders and out through his chest, and he fell with a crash and hit the ground with his forehead. Telemachus ran back, leaving the spear where it was, stuck in Amphinomus. He was afraid that if he stopped to pull out the spear shaft from the dead body, someone would rush in and cut him down with a sword as he was stooping over. So he ran off to join his father, and when he was near him he said, "Father, I'm going to fetch you a shield, a couple of spears and a helmet, and when I come back I shall arm myself too, and shall also bring enough weapons for the swineherd and cowherd, since we all need to be armed." Odysseus answered, "Go ahead, bring them back while my arrows hold out, or our enemies may succeed in forcing me from the door, since I am alone here." Telemachus quickly obeyed his father's commands and hurried off to the storeroom to fetch the armour. He took out 4 shields and 8 spears and 4 bronze helmets with horsehair plumes, and he hurried back to his father, and he put on a helmet and shield. The 2 slaves did also, and they took their positions on either side of Odysseus. As long as Odysseus had arrows, he shot the suitors one by one, and their bodies piled up on the floor. But when there were no more arrows, he leant his bow against a doorpost close to one of the walls, and over his shoulders he slung a large ox-hide shield. And upon his head he placed a glittering helmet with a terrible horsehair crest that kept shaking above him, and he picked up 2 heavy spears that were pointed with bronze. There was an exit door by the edge of the threshold. It was higher up and opened onto a passage that led to the street. Odysseus ordered the swineherd to stand by this door, since it was the only one by which the men could escape. But Agelaus shouted, "My friends, why doesn't someone go out the side door and raise the alarm, so that the people can come and put an end to this man and his shooting?" Melanthius answered, "It won't work, my lord. The door into the courtyard is very near, and the passage is narrow. One man could block us all, single-handed, if he's strong. But I've another idea. I shall go and bring back some weapons for you from the storeroom. That has to be where they put them, not anywhere else." At this, Melanthius made his way to the storeroom through the back passages. There he took out a dozen shields and spears and bronze helmets with horsehair plumes, and he carried them back and handed them out to the suitors. When Odysseus saw them putting on armour and holding the long spears, his limbs went weak and his heart sickened, for he realized how great the danger was. And he said, "Telemachus, one of the women is on their side and has brought them these arms, or else Melanthius has." Telemachus answered, "Father, it's my fault and nobody else's. I must have left the door open when I came from the storeroom, and someone happened to see it. Hurry, Eumaeus, lock up the storeroom and find out whether one of our women slaves is behind this, or Melanthius, as my father and I suspect." As they were speaking, Melanthius went again to the storeroom to fetch some more arms, but the swineherd saw him, and he turned to Odysseus, who was nearby, and said, "Son of Laertes, there he goes as we thought, that scum! On his way to the storeroom again. Do you want me to kill him now, or to catch him and drag him here, so that you may take your revenge yourself for the many abominations he carried out in your palace?" Odysseus answered, "Don't worry. Telemachus and I shall keep the suitors penned up in the hall. However hard they may fight, the 2 of you go and twist back his hands and feet, and tie them and fasten a rope around him, and hoist him up to the rafters, and let him dangle in torment there for a while." When he had finished, they hurried off to the storeroom. Melanthius did not see them approach. He was busy searching for weapons in one of the far corners that lay in wait on either side of the door. And when he finally stepped from the storeroom, holding a helmet in one hand and in the other an ancient shield that was spotted with mildew. It had belonged to Laertes, who had carried it in his prime. It had lain for many years, and the stitches had rotted away on the straps. The 2 of them leapt and tackled him and dragged him inside by the hair and threw him terrified onto the ground. They twisted his hands and feet, tied them behind his back with cords excruciatingly tight, as Odysseus had ordered them to, and fastened a heavy rope around his body, and hoisted him up to the rafters. And you, Eumaeus, jeered at him with these words: "Well, Melanthius, now you can get some rest, lying at ease in the kind of comfortable bed you deserve. I think you will probably be the first one to see Dawn sit on her golden throne when she rises from the river of ocean, and it's time to drive in your goats for the suitors' banquet in the great hall." They left him hanging there, stretched out in agony. And the two of them put on their armour and closed the door, then ran to Odysseus and took their places beside him. And as they stood on the threshold, those four, and kept fighting fiercely against so many strong men, Athena, the daughter of Zeus, came in and approached them, taking the form of Mentor, her voice and body exactly like his. Odysseus rejoiced and said, "Mentor, rescue us, we're in trouble. Remember everything I have done for you, my old friend." These were his words, but he knew that it was Athena who had come to his aid. The suitors on their side began shouting abuse at her. Agelaus spoke first. "Mentor, be careful. I warn you, this is a trick. Don't let him persuade you to fight against us. For if you take his side, I promise you this: as soon as we kill both father and son, we shall kill you too. You will pay with your life, and after you're dispatched, we shall confiscate your possessions, your house, your land, and drive your sons into exile, and your daughters and wife will not dare to show themselves in the city." These threats enraged Athena. She turned to Odysseus and rebuked him angrily. "Where is your spirit, my friend? Where is the courage you had when for 9 long years you fought the Trojans in order to win back Helen? You laboured non-stop to slaughter them, till at last, because of your plan, the great city of Priam was taken. So how can it be that now, when you have come home, you're whining and doubting your strength against such opponents as these men? Come here and take your stand by my side, old friend, and watch me in action, and see how Mentor, in the midst of your enemies, pays you for your past kindness." These were her words, but she would not give him the strength for victory yet, but kept on testing his courage, and his sons as well. And then, in the form of a swallow, she flew up to one of the smoke-stained rafters and sat there. The suitors now were rallied by Agelaus, Eurynomus, Enoptolemus, Pisander, Polybus, and Amphimedon, who were the bravest of all those who still survived and fought for their lives. Many others had fallen, struck down by arrows, and Agelaus shouted to them, "My friends, I can see that this man is weakening. Mentor has left him after an empty boast, and the 4 of them stand in front of the door by themselves. So don't throw your spears all together. Let 6 of you throw them first. And Odysseus, if Zeus permits it, will be cut down, and you will cover yourselves with glory. And once he has fallen, the other 3 will not matter." When he finished, 6 men moved forward and threw their spears, but Athena made every one of them miss its target. One hit a doorpost, another one hit the door, and the bronze point of a 3rd one stuck in the wall. After the spears had landed, Odysseus said, "Friends, it is time for us too to throw a few spears into the crowd of suitors who want to kill us in addition to all the crimes they committed before." When he had finished speaking, they threw their spears with sure aim. Odysseus killed Demoptolemus. At the same moment, Telemachus hit Euryades, and the swineherd hit Elatus, and the cowherd's spear killed Pisander. And they all fell and chewed the dust, and the rest of the suitors retreated to a far corner. At once Odysseus and the other 3 rushed to pull their spears from the corpses. And again the suitors moved forward and threw their spears, but Athena made every one of them miss the target. Amphimedon hit Telemachus on the wrist, scratching his skin. Antizippus just grazed the shoulder of Eumaeus above his shield, but the shaft flew on and fell to the ground. And once more Odysseus's men threw their spears, and Odysseus, destroyer of cities, cut down Eurynomus, and Telemachus hit Amphimedon. Polybus fell to the swineherd's spear, and the cowherd's spear hit Antizippus and went right through his chest. And Felicius exulted, "You foul-mouthed braggart! This is the end of all your big talk. The immortals will have the last word, so receive this spear as my gift. It's a fair exchange, I think, for the cow's hoof you threw at Odysseus when he was here as a beggar." Just as he finished, Odysseus stabbed Agelaus in close combat. At the same moment, Telemachus cut down Leocritus with a spear in the belly, driving the point in hard and out through his back. And he fell face down and hit the ground with his forehead. Then, from high in the rafters, Athena held up the deadly storm shield The suitors were panic-stricken, and they charged through the hall like a herd of stampeding cattle, maddened by gadflies in spring when the long days come, and just as falcons with curved beaks and crooked claws descend from the hills and swoop down on smaller birds, which quickly scatter across the plain and fly low but cannot escape, and the falcons swoop down and kill them, and the spectators watch with delight, just so did Odysseus and the other three rush on the suitors across the hall and slaughter them, slashing into them right and left, and hideous screams arose from the men being hacked and maimed and killed, and the floor was awash with blood. Leodes ran up and clasped Odysseus's knees and begged him for mercy. "Listen to me, Odysseus, spare my life. I swear I've never done any violence, either in word or deed, to your women. In fact, I've always tried to prevent the others from behaving that way, but no one would listen to me, and that is why they have paid for their crimes. I was only their priest. I did nothing wrong, but now I must die. This is the thanks I get for all my good deeds." Odysseus answered him now with an angry scowl. "If you were their priest, you must have prayed many times that I would never come home, and my wife would be yours and would bear your children. So you deserve to die." With these words he picked up a sword that was lying near him, where Agelaus had dropped it, and brought it down on Leodes' neck, and just as he was beginning to answer, his head fell off and rolled in the dust. The poet Phemius, who had been forced by the suitors to sing at their feasts, now tried to avoid a grim fate. He was standing near the side door with the lyre in his hands, not knowing whether he ought to slip out of the hall and take refuge by the altar of Zeus in the courtyard, where Laertes and Odysseus had burned many thigh bones, or go straight up to Odysseus and clasp his knees. And in the end he decided it would be better to clasp Odysseus's knees and beg him for mercy. So he put the lyre on the ground, halfway between the mixing bowl and the elegant silver-bossed chair, and he went right up to Odysseus, clasped his knees and begged him for mercy. "Listen to me, Odysseus, have mercy and spare my life. You'll be sorry if you kill a poet who sings before gods and men. I am self-taught. In my mind the god has implanted songs of all kinds. I'm worthy to sing before you as before a god, so in the midst of your fury don't be too eager to cut off my head. Besides, as your son will tell you, I never came to your house willingly or for gain to sing for the suitors after their feasts. They made me come and perform, and they had such power here that I couldn't resist them." Telemachus heard and quickly said to his father, "Wait, this man is innocent. Put up your sword, and let us spare Medon too, who took care of me when I was a child. If he hasn't been killed by Phyletus or the swineherd or you yourself as you raged through the hall." Medon the herald heard everything that he said. He was hiding under a chair and had wrapped an oxhide around himself as he tried to avoid a grim fate. Now he crawled out and stood and threw off the oxhide and ran to Telemachus, fell down and clasped his knees and begged him for mercy. "Telemachus, here I am, spare my life, and ask your father to spare me, or else he will cut me down in his rage at those fools who ravaged his house and treated you with such rudeness." Odysseus smiled and said to him, "Don't be afraid. My son's intervention has saved you. May this be a lesson to you and to others that good deeds will be rewarded. But leave the hall straightway, you and the poet. Go to the courtyard away from this carnage and wait there until I have finished doing what needs to be done." When they heard his words, the two of them left the hall and sat down at the altar of Zeus, their wide eyes constantly looking around in every direction, afraid that at any moment death would appear. Odysseus looked round too, scanning the hall to see whether any suitors were left alive and were hiding now to escape their fate, but he found that they were all dead, sprawled out in dust and blood and in piles, like fish that fishermen catch in their nets and pull in onto the shore from the billowing waves of the restless sea, and they lie heaped up on the sand, longing for water until the fiery sun kills them. Just so did the suitors lie, body on body. And Odysseus said, "Telemachus, call Eurycleia. Summon her here at once. I've something to tell her." Telemachus quickly obeyed his father's commands, and he rattled the door of the women's quarters and said,